That's a good question. I think what I was is not what I am, and maybe not what I will be. But at the present moment, whether I'm running from idle hands or the challenges of like having 2 teenagers and a marriage and a business and my own life, like I'm just pretty go. Mm-hmm. And no, I don't necessarily love that, but it's just what I do, and I'm okay with it.
Hey, you just gotta ride the wave, man.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, are you like that or opposite of that? Like, are you pretty? I mean, if you're doing this on a side hustle, then you're definitely like a go.
Yeah, I'm definitely a go. A little too go. Sometimes I gotta admit. Yeah, it's a good question actually. Like, yeah, I go 100 miles an hour, but I like it like that. Like, I don't want it to be like that, but I just do it, and it's just how I roll. And like, I just find myself just end up doing so much stuff. Like, I just let myself loose, honestly, without really thinking about it. Like, you're right, doing this podcast, like, it is a small little side hustle. I mean, it's just for fun, promoting like my family business. It's like lobster oil. I don't even know if I told you that.
Lobster oil.
We'll talk about that in a sec.
Okay, like I want to hear about this. Can I crack one of these?
Yes, please.
I'm gonna leave a sour one for you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Oh fuck.
Sorry. Oh yeah. I just rode my bike from the North Shore, so it's possible.
You biked from the North Shore?
Oh yeah.
You live in North Van?
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
I live at Capilano Marine, basically.
Okay, shit.
Did you grow up there? Do you know?
I'm from North Van pretty well.
Well,
you know Sutherland?
Yeah.
I live like right 19th and Grand Boulevard.
Currently now?
Yeah. Right now. Well, I live at home still, but soon to be moving out. But yeah.
That's the best way to go. Cheers,
my friend. Cheers, Sante. Cheers, guys.
Yes.
Are we filming?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cheers to everybody looking at the camera, whatever.
Wait, there's no go. We're just filming right now.
No, it's fine. It's
God.
like it's just like I said. I just want this to be like a conversation, no stress. But
there is no stress.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Do you want to present yourself? Maybe tell us.
Should I look in the camera when I do
whatever
this,
you want. Just whatever makes you feel comfortable.
I always hear that like when you do that and you lock eyes with the person watching, it's very awkward for them. So I'm going to be super awkward and look right in that camera and say, "My name is Aaron Jonckheere, co-founder, co-owner. Well, the bank really owns us, so I guess just co-founder of Strange Fellows Brewing. I live in North Vancouver, as we were just discussing. Originally from Toronto." And being an entrepreneur and having a brewery is a lifelong dream and passion come to fruition. And it's really been the greatest experience professionally of my career.
Cool. So I did do a bit of research on you. A little bit, not too much. Don't worry about it. You were a real estate agent before you did that. Yeah. What got you into real estate?
Oh, man, really good question. Wow, I didn't realize you were going to do research on me.
I'm not really good at it, but this time I was like...
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing I paid that guy to remove all that bad stuff about me. No, I'm kidding. Well, okay, you even have to go a step further back than that.
Let's do it.
And I'm of Belgian heritage. My grandfather came to Canada with my dad's family in 1952 or 53. My dad was 9 years old. There was 5 of them, and they emigrated. My grandfather thought there was going to be another war in Belgium, so they emigrated to Canada. He didn't like the beer. Obviously, in the 1950s, it wasn't the greatest, and being Belgian and the tradition of brewing beer in Belgium, he came to Canada, and every time he'd go back to Belgium, he'd pick up things to homebrew. Eventually taught my dad to homebrew, so that sort of tradition carried on. And then when I was young, my dad taught me to homebrew, and we homebrewed together. And I always had a sort of interest in beer. It was always on the dinner table. I was always allowed to have beer. It was never this sort of thing that I would try and take and get hammered on. It was just always part of my life. No, I did party as a youth, of course. So. But it was always part of my life. And so it just felt natural when craft beer was becoming a thing to sort of be interested in that and follow that passion. But in answer to your question, how did I end up in real estate? And I'm giving you a really long answer to that short question.
It's okay.
I was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I worked for some small companies and some big companies. And in a period of like 3 years, I got laid off 4 times. And that's just part of the business. You get chewed up and spit out. And it was a great business. And I met many wonderful, smart people, many amazing doctors and professionals. But eventually at one point, I'm like, this isn't for me. I don't think I can do this. And so my wife said to me, she's like, why don't you start a brewery? It's your dream. You love it. And I said, okay. But I couldn't go from that to starting a brewery. So I thought, well, let me get my real estate license first. I worked for a really large company, got my real estate license, started selling real estate until I got a call from HR and they're like, we got a meeting with you coming up here next Friday, whatever. And then they fired me on the spot because I was working as a pharmaceutical rep and a realtor. fair enough. And I deserved to be fired. And it was, looking back on that experience, I let down a lot of people. You work in collaborative teams in pharmaceutical sales. And I had some people that relied on me to be doing my job to the best of my ability. And while I think I did it well, I didn't do it as well as I could have. So, when one door closes, another opens. Went real estate full time, and that's the answer to how I got here. And I did real estate for about 4 years just to get enough money to sustain a family and
to fund it.
Yeah, my wife still worked, and we gave up on a lot of dreams to start the brewery. So it was really a team effort to get to where we are.
And when did you move here to Vancouver?
1998.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was a young man. I was very young.
I'm born 97, so we're not too far apart, I guess.
Oh my God! I had finished university.
There's nothing wrong with that. But kind of going to you moved you came here in 1998. When did you stop being a real estate agent?
Okay, 98. Moved here. 2014 was my last year of real estate.
Okay.
So I think when we were building the brewery, we started building the brewery in February of 2014, and then about halfway through that year, I couldn't do both. It was just too much. And so I just said, I don't need the real estate anymore. I'll just coast for 6 months without making any salary and hope that we open and everything's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure you got this question maybe a few times, but what was the initial time, or what was the thought, or what was the moment like when you're like, I want to start a brewery? Like, what was that like? Were you having dinner with your wife and then she told you should do this, or like did it take some time? Like, how did you initially really start taking action? Like, when was that moment? Like, I'm going to start a brewery.
I've never had that question.
Yes.
And not that I get lots of questions, but I mean, I've never really thought of what that moment was, and nothing really comes to mind when.
Really.
It was just a slow, gradual build of learning, researching, learning more about the business, immersing yourself in a business plan. Just going down that road, it sort of seemed natural to keep taking the next step.
Right.
There was never a time. The real moment of the whole thing was the most serious moment was when you sign a lease. Because here you're like, I just have these ideas on paper. Now I'm committing to all this money, and if it goes wrong, you still owe the landlord for that money. It's a real thing. So that was probably the biggest, scariest moment, but everything else just seemed like you're just doing the next thing on your list.
Right. Hey guys, quick word from our sponsors here. So this episode is brought to you by Olive and Ciboulette lobster oil. So what this is pretty much an olive oil, except it's lobster infused. What can you use lobster oil with? Well, let me tell you right now, you can use it for salad dressing, sauces. You can pan-sear with it. You can marinate with it. You can pretty much do anything you want with olive oil, except this is lobster infused. If you want to check us out, you can check us out at www.oliveandciboulette.com. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and back to the show. And during that time, like when you had this idea and you started doing that list, were a lot of people calling you like crazy for doing that, or was most of the people around you supportive? Like how was that journey for you?
A bit of both. Yeah. And I think I have some really great friends, and I've always wanted my friends and encouraged my friends to be honest with me. Not have yes men or yes people in your life, to really tell you like it is. So there were some people who shared their concerns for what I was doing, but overall, I would say they just helped me be better prepared. And so I think, that's a really positive thing. And the positive people in life are great, because when you need a burst of positivity or happiness, you just go to them. But, I think having both people around is really important to me, and was important through this process.
Right. And I'm sure those people that were giving you advice, it was to help you and make you better anyways, right? Like good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think, you can always put in another dollar into your business, but, you have to draw the line and say, this is how much I'm comfortable losing. It's like going to the casino. Not really like going to the casino, but you know what I mean? Like you got to take what you can lose. And so you have to put enough in when you fund a business that you're comfortable losing, because there's a lot of things you can control, but way more things you can't control. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be mindful of those things.
So I know there's like a lot of steps on starting a business, but like what are kind of like the basics of like, starting a brewery? Obviously you have to find a pretty big warehouse or a big space to get all these machines and equipment. And like, what was that search like for you to start with? Like, how did you find your space?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That was, in Vancouver, that was a real challenge, right? Because especially, you think back to 2010, there were 50 breweries in British Columbia. 50 breweries. That's 13 years ago. Fast forward today, there's over 250. So what that means is, I mean, it's grown and people know breweries now, but when there were 50 breweries, people didn't really get the beer business, didn't really know what was happening. They just saw it as an opportunity to maybe, have a business in their space. But it was very challenging to find a space for us to put a brewery into it, because there's only certain zoning that allows for your business to start.
Right.
So it was really challenging. We saw a lot of, I've learned many things, and one of the things is I don't know much about anything, but what I do know is that when you have a business plan, it's really important for that business plan to be flexible, to be able to morph into different situations, warehouses, partners, products, so that you can be flexible in what you do. Because if you get locked into what you're doing, that can be a challenge when something gets thrown at you, and you have to. I hate the word pivot, but pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pivot just got killed in the pandemic.
I agree with the word pivot. Interesting. So I know you weren't by yourself to start the business, or were you by yourself when you first started the business?
So what I wrote, good question. I wrote my business plan, over the course of like 3 or 4 years, and it became a real beast of a business plan. And then I was taking it around, shopping it with brewers in Vancouver, and I met with James at Storm, who was an awesome guy. I met a couple other fellows, one of whom passed away, unfortunately, Daniel Nibbs. And then I met Dave Varga, who was the head brewer at Red Truck Brewing, back when they used to brew in North Vancouver. And he went through my business plan. He's like, I love your idea, think it'll do great, but I'm not your guy. He's like, but I know someone who is, and is my boss. So he took me down to the Old Town Brew Pub, where I met Ian Hill. I gave him a little letter, and we had our first date there, and it just sort of started from there. And so what we ended up doing was taking his business plan and smashing it together with my business plan, and came out with Strange Fellows, and which it sounds so easy to say that, but when you have your idea of something, and you're in a relationship with someone else and they have their idea, that coming together, at first, it's really difficult. And once you get the hang of it, it's like, okay, I know the person, I know what they're like, I know how to have discussions with them. But the first 6 months were very challenging. But ultimately, I think when you have a business partner in anything, in life, in starting a business, things are vetted, and you get to, all the crazy ideas you have, the good ones make it through, and the bad ones, they get tossed to the side. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really... I've loved having a business partner, and he's become one of my best friends, a confidant, a source of support, and a voice of reason in my life. And same with some of our employees. They have had more impact on me than anyone I've ever met in my entire life, other than my wife and my immediate family.
Were you a little bit nervous, although you have a sip of your beer here, but were you a little bit nervous on having someone else joining you to start this venture? Or in your mindset, you already knew, like, okay, like, I'm going to need help for this, so I'm open to getting other ideas?
Can I answer that with a question?
Yeah, please do.
Are you like a collaborative person? Do you like working together with...
Somewhat, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think that you just have to know who you are and know what you want. Like, for me... I'm a collaborative person. I take feedback from others. I listen, and I sort of put all that together, and it all sort of shapes my opinion. Whereas I know people who, I don't know, they don't play well with others. I don't know how to say that. So they maybe they're better suited to go on their own, and no way is right or wrong.
Right.
But I think for me, especially in the beer business, the administration, the marketing, the sales, I kind of knew how to do most of that stuff. But the brewing, I was a terrible home brewer. Oh my gosh! Have you ever brewed beer? Like, it's
no. I like drinking it, but I've never tried, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, you could be good, right? Yeah, did you like science?
No.
Oh yeah, right. There you go. I was no good at science.
I was just not motivated for science. Yeah. We had a horrible science teacher in high school. It just didn't vibe well. So yeah.
But again, there's a skills inventory, right? Like, you would have a skills inventory if you were starting, I don't know, an IT company. You would know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you'd have to surround yourself with things and people that can make up for your deficiencies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, find people that have the skills that you don't have, and then learn from them, and then just go together.
Yeah. And when I'd make homebrew, I'd give it to friends and be like, "Here, try this beer," and they'd be like, they sort of look on their face and be like, that's great. And I'd be like, that's total BS. It's not great. I'm sorry.
Just trying to be nice,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So you guys, you put your business plan together after 6 months, roughly, you were saying? Or like it took you guys 6 months to or for you 6 months to get you not along, but like comfortable on just sharing that with him.
Yep.
What was, I mean, obviously there's so many steps, but like how did you find that space? That warehouse space.
That particular warehouse space. So funny enough,
which is a great location, honestly.
And at first we didn't think it was.
Yeah.
Because it's on Clark Drive and it's a bit of a thoroughfare.
Yeah,
and out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just sort of fit with who. And when we found the space, we didn't have a brewery name.
Yeah.
We had done a focus group. We had all these different names, and we couldn't agree on a name.
What were some of the names?
Oh my gosh.
It's just a few.
Yeah, Unity Brewing. Oh my God, my business partner would kill me for not knowing some of these. Orange Brewing, Jonckheere Hill, like our last names. But we came to this name. We agreed on Low Countries Brewing. Do you know what the Low Countries are? No.
Sorry.
No one knows the Low Countries.
Well, tell us.
I'm a Belgian dude, so the Low Countries are the Netherlands, Belgium, and northern France.
Okay.
And they're called the Low Countries because they're literally at sea level, and Netherlands is actually quite below sea level at points. So they're called the Low Countries, and they also hold some of the greatest brewing traditions in the world. Next to Germany and maybe some other areas, the Low Countries are responsible for many of the styles and types of beer that we take for granted in our society today. So we call it Low Countries Brewing, and we tell everyone, we're like, Low Countries Brewing, and everybody be like, and we have to explain who we were. We're like, Low Countries Brewing, the Low Countries. So we're like, that's not going to work. So then we did these focus groups. We came up with all these other names, and then we still couldn't agree on a name. I'm telling you this story. And then it was like we had rented the space. We had leased the space, which I'll tell you about. And then we couldn't figure a name. And my business partner literally and I were like, are we going to do this? We can't figure out a name. How are we going to run a business together? What are we going to do? So we do what everyone does is we got together, our wives and our spouses included, and we had dinner. And we were sitting around the table, and we went through our top five, my life partner and I's top five. We went through my business partner and his wife's top five, and none of them matched. So basically, Ian, his wife, said, you guys are strange dudes. Strange dudes, strange guys, strange fellows, ba-ching! There it goes. And that's how it happened. And we really are, strange. Like, I'm very different than Ian. I'm a wandering kind of guy. I don't focus. I got ADD. Like, I'm all over the place, as you can tell. And my business partner is the opposite. He likes going down rabbit holes. He's called a particularist. He goes way deep into the details of things. And so it's a really great relationship like that.
It's good balance.
Well, I think you need to have that, right?
Yeah, like if you guys are both the same, I feel like it'd just be hard.
Oh, it would. If they're both like me, it would just be a disaster. We'd be a hot mess. We'd be everywhere. So we looked at a bunch of different spaces. One was really small. It would have been like a brass neck model, where it's just like, I guess, the new model of breweries, which is a really small, concise space. And you just, you're more serving people out of your tasting room. We saw others that were 2 floors that were just logistically challenging because when you talk about beer, you talk about heavy weights. To have suspended floors or ceilings means, you got to reinforce those. You need elevators. And then we eventually we were working with a commercial realtor named Matt Smith, who's a wonderful individual. And he took us to a few spaces, and then he found a spot for us with this lovely landlord, and we met him, and he was willing to work with us. And that was the biggest thing. And thank God for Ian, my business partner, because he had an established history of brewing. And we got 9,000 square feet, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us because we wouldn't be who we are without that much space.
Right.
So it was really, you got to be good to be lucky, but mostly lucky to be good. And we got lucky.
Yeah.
Andina Brewing, you may have heard of Andina. They just closed their doors, unfortunately. And they didn't have some of the luck that we had, and they got into the business a little bit later than us. And just that 2 or 3 year window made it really challenging for them to get off the ground and get a brand established. And that's, unfortunately, that may happen a little bit more now.
Why do you think so? From your because you're in the industry, like from your perspective, like why do you think it's? Like,
well, I think you know a lot about business too. I think they were maybe undercapitalized from the start. I think they maybe missed the mark with their brand a little bit. and maybe didn't have the experience in beer in Canada to make a go of it. And the owners or Andreas and his brother are wonderful people, still are, and they put their life into that business and tried to make it a reflection of who they are. And for some reason, it just didn't click in the market. I don't know.
Yeah, like there's just so many breweries right now. Like, it's not a bad thing. I just think, I mean, there's so many options, which is great. I mean, look at North Vancouver, like look at Lower and Lonsdale, like House of Funk. What's the other one?
Oh my God, beer brewing, streetcar brewing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Shakedown.
It's pretty cool what they're doing. It's just like, there's just so much, right? So it's just like, I wonder how that plays for like other breweries. Like, I mean, obviously downtown Vancouver, there's so much more, obviously, like space and stuff like that. But it's just, I don't know, like it's tough, right? And then we just kind of came out of COVID. Like, we do see a light at the end of the tunnel somewhat, right? I mean, maybe everybody has different perspectives. I don't know. I'm just trying to be neutral here.
No.
But it's different for everybody, right? So it's too bad that business did shut down now when they literally fought through like probably the worst time there could ever have a business for beer or for food or anything.
Well, you have a family business, and I'm sure it's a really challenging time right now to run a business. I can list the challenges of having a Vancouver-based business. It's property taxes. It's finding people to work. It's paying people a living wage to enjoy working with you. It's the rising prices of all your ingredients and your goods that you make your product with. It's the lease rates that you pay. It's buildings being smashed down so that people don't have a home for long term, so you can't invest in your space. It's the number of breweries that exist in British Columbia, particularly in beer. It's this a declining market share for beer drinking in Canada and in BC. It's more options. In the past 5 years, cannabis has become legal. Right. And there's a whole healthy approach to people not drinking and having non-alcoholic drinks. And so, and people have less money. That's probably the most important thing is like, I know the cost of groceries. You know the cost of groceries. Like, if I can spend $20 on a 4-pack or $20 on a 12-pack, I get why people would maybe drink lesser quality beer to get more of it, right? It's a really challenging environment we operate in now, you know?
Has like, I don't know if this is like a sensitive topic, but like, obviously like costs for you guys, it's changed, right? With everything that's happening around the world. Like, has that like really eaten a lot of your margins in terms of like, Yeah, full stop,
And I rely on bigger breweries who have more expertise in this kind of stuff. And there's one brewery in particular that we're friends with, and they have a CFO or a controller or something. And CFO. They have a better handle on this kind of thing, and their costs have gone up, significantly. And so they're a bigger brewery with more economies of scale. Like, it's definitely gone up that for us. And so it's challenging, but, beer's been around a long time.
Yeah, it has. And
I don't think it's going away. I think it's just, there's the pendulum of ebbs and flows in business and in life, and we'll see where it goes. It's,
Well, you guys are killing it, to be honest with you. Like, I will be honest with you, I've only been a few times to the brewery.
Very flattering.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But, like, Strange Fellows everywhere. Like, you guys, I think, as a business are killing it.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, at least. And, I mean, you guys got to keep doing what you're doing. And, I mean, I think, and you guys have such good, well, at least you have good energy. I'm sure Ian does, too. I haven't met the gentleman yet. But that's great. But, like, tell us a little bit more. Okay, like, you guys are getting all the machines into the warehouse.
Yep.
Like, what's that feeling like when you're finally seeing, like, your dream coming true?
It's euphoric. Yeah, absolutely. When, like anything, that's a lot of work and a lot of planning and takes a long time to see it come together. Like maybe a wedding, maybe getting your master's or a university degree or a high school diploma. All that work and effort you put in to see it come together near the end and come to fruition is... it's nerve-wracking, but it's also an amazing feeling, and especially when you have something like a brewery where you get these giant tanks that come in and you get these workers putting them in, and one day you go from having an empty warehouse to like you have all these tanks. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I especially when you've just been working on these things that just seem so far out and such large projects that don't have a finality to them. When you go and work with your hands and you build things and put things together, at the end of the day, you're like, I built that wall. I painted that wall. That's a really great feeling to have. So seeing it come together, it's really amazing. And also back in 2014, when we put the brewery together, like I wrote a blog, and it's still posted, I think.
Okay.
It was called imstartingacraftbrewery.com. And because I knew nothing about beer. So I wrote a blog and it detailed every single decision we had to make and all the important things. And if people go there, there's videos that we documented the process of taking a warehouse all the way from start to finish and opening a brewery. And there's like 4 or 5-minute videos. And if you do nothing else, watch those 5-minute videos and you can see this brewery come together. And it's a pretty cool feeling to see that happen.
Right. And I think a lot of people like, there's just about marketing that, like how do you like show that, you know what I mean? But like I think like that's so interesting, right? Like that's one of the reasons like I'm doing this podcast is because like I personally love hearing people's stories, and like I don't think people or business owners talk enough about like how they got to where they got. It's usually like right now, we're doing this, we're doing that. But what about like the real work, like before, like the sweat and tears, the stress that you might have gone on your shoulders, right? Like the real story and how like everything begun pretty much, right?
Well, and don't you think sometimes those stories kind of get lost? You know, because it's just, you're making so many decisions and you're go, that you're sort of like, you're not really onboarding that information and recording it. 100%. So that's why I wrote a blog, is to sort of like detail all those minute, detailed decisions that lead to your end goal and seeing how it all comes together in the end. Mm-hmm. Because, we ended up at the same place we thought we would, which was having a brewery. And we thought we'd go this way, and we ended up going, way that way. It's just, so many forks in the road that you take a decision. You're like, I guess we're going this way, and you just have to rely on, your sense of making the right decision.
So, like, are you part of making the beer? Like, you must be one of the decision makers, obviously, or at least when it comes to the tasting part. How did you guys figure out like what kind of beers you guys are starting with? Like that's a pretty big decision. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about how that started or how you guys made the final decision? And what were, if you remember, those first beers on the menu?
I love that I'm going to burst your bubble right now and tell you I have zero say in the beers that we made. It was maybe after like 3 months of being open. And when you start a business, you're doing everything. You're doing the books, you're cleaning the toilets, you're working behind the bar, you're working in the brewery, you're helping do everything, deliver. And I was behind the bar, and I had like 2 or 3 people that day say, "Boy, you should really make," and I think it was, I'm gonna get it wrong, like a double IPA. And so the next day I went to my business partner Ian, who was the brewmaster, and I said, Ian, we got a lot of feedback lately, and I think we should make a double IPA. And he looked at me like, and no smile. He's like, the next time you tell me what to brew, this relationship is over. And I'm like, check. Never making that suggestion again. So now, like, and fair enough. He's the beer guy with tons of experience. And it's like having an artist, like, let's say you're working with Picasso. And, you see a nice Van Gogh and you're like, hey, Pablo, you should paint a little more like Vincent Van Gogh. I really like his style. Picasso's going to be like, take a hike, probably in French. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, so you can't really, like, Ian is a experienced brewer, and he's going to make what he knows how to make and what he's good at because he wants to lead with his best foot forward. Mm-hmm. And if he was really good and was really into double IPAs, he would have made it. But our first beers we made were, I think, I'm going to get them wrong in the order, but Talisman was one of them. Okay.
This one?
That one there.
This one?
So that's Talisman, our short can. It normally comes in a taller can, and it's a West Coast Pale Ale, 4%, so lower alcohol, which is great. So it's great for people who are approaching craft beer, maybe newer to craft beer, but it has enough hop for people who do love craft beer. Mm-hmm. And it's great after a hockey game, after a sports event, in the winter, in the summer. It's just a really good all-around beer.
Yeah, it is a really good beer. Yeah. I really enjoy this one.
Really, really easygoing. So we made Talisman. We made 2 Belgian wits. I think we called them Twit 1 and Twit 2, I think. And only because we had 2 small fermenters, so we took 1 batch of wit and split them into 2 and then put 2 different yeasts to see what it would taste like. And then we brewed, which wasn't on for a while, a Russian Imperial Stout. Ian had one of his friends who owned a brewery in Switzerland, the French portion of Switzerland, come to Canada, and they brewed a Russian Imperial Stout together. And we took that and then we stuck it in bourbon barrels, let it age for a year, and then we released it on our first anniversary. And I think it was like 10.5%, and it was a pretty amazing beer. And we've continued to make that beer every year. And we do different things with it. One year we've added a bunch of timber train cold pressed coffee to it. And we added coconut to it. It's lots of different stuff.
It's a science.
It's totally science.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
When you guys do like a test of like a beer you want to try or try to sell, like what's like, do you guys just make like a small version, or do you guys have to use one of those humongous kettles? Like what's the testing like?
Well, the best part of having a tasting room is that basically we have a built-in audience that will come and try all the tests we make. So we make our brew length is 3,000 liters. So we make 3,000 liters of beer at one time. I believe they can do half batches, so 1,500 liters is the smallest we can make. And they'll try different things out in the room and see how they go over. And so we've had some beers that started as just a test and that we'd sell it. And we had great feedback, or the brewers had great feedback from it, and they decided to make it again. And others that maybe didn't do so well, so we've moved on from. Pop & Jay's a great example. They made it 1 year. It sold out really quick. And then so they made it subsequent years, and then we ended up making it a regular product for a few years, which was very interesting.
Wow.
So the craft beer drinker is a very unique, interesting person and very near and dear to my heart. The challenge with them is that they are not brand loyal. They are craft beer loyal. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a business, someone who's really into craft beer knows every brewery, knows all their beers, wants to try them all, never wants to try the same thing twice because there's so many amazing beers and they're so right. But from a business standpoint, it's like, well, that's challenging because like, what the heck? How do we get this person to keep buying our beer? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
And like obviously, like who's your target audience? Like when you open the brewery for the first time, like obviously you want to get all the people that like really know beer because those are the people that are actually gonna want to try different things and know actually what they're talking about. But like nowadays, like who is your target audience? Like what are you guys? If I may ask, I'm not sure if I'm just curious, like how does that go for you guys? Is it like, okay, we're gonna try to get this demographic or these people, like what's that like?
It's funny, we have those conversations at the brewery. We're like, who is our customer? And there's certainly I think the answer is twofold. One, it's like, okay, it's probably a male in his 30s to 40s, gainfully employed, works in Vancouver, lives in Vancouver, living with either common law or a girlfriend or married, probably no kids or just young kids, and doing quite well in their life. But I think, when I look in the tasting room and I see who's in there, it's females, males, it's young, it's old, it's Caucasians, non-Caucasians. It's a really great group because craft beer by nature is very inclusive and welcoming, and that's something that we work really hard to do as a brewery and as a community. And I think that attracts people who are like-minded, and it's a really great community because they support local business, and they're willing to support with their money. And that's a really important thing. Is that it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I support local, but then you go to Walmart and buy underwear made in wherever, and you like it's one thing to actually put your money where your mouth is. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like I do agree with you. Like I love wine, to be honest with you. I used to be a huge beer guy. I used to date a girl and she got me into beers, and I used to love it. Now I'm a little bit more on the wine side. Still love beers, but I do think going to a brewery is way more of like a community than going to a winery. Like in my opinion, and maybe it depends. Maybe I've gone to the wrong places. I mean, going to Oliver, or Kelowna, it's kind of the epicenter of the wine country in Canada, almost, I would say.
Yeah. But
like I do feel like way more like not comfortable, but way more cozy in a brewery, in my opinion, because I guess I don't know. It's just not as I don't know. I just find it more cozy.
No, you make a really good point. So my business partner Ian, I'll just call him Ian from now on. My God, I keep saying
that's okay. I think they know now.
So annoying.
It's okay. I think
Ian Hill, from now on known as Ian. He knows lots of people, and he knows the owner or the head winemaker at Poplar Grove. Okay. And so about 3 years ago, we went down the road, and we've since made our own wine. So we partner with Poplar Grove. They send us grapes. We ferment the grapes.
Wait, strange fellows.
Strange, yeah.
Really?
We call it the Stranger's Wine. It's for sale currently at the brewery and some private liquor stores around town. A shameful plug. Oh, so bad. But it's really great. But and the reason I'm bringing this up is not to, well, I guess it is a bit to plug it, but it's to say that the beer culture and wine cultures, while there are a lot of similarities, are also very different. And there's a different terminology. Winemakers have a lot of time off to be able to be great advocates for themselves, to really do high-level marketing, whereas brewing, you're constantly doing it, and it takes a lot more of your time and effort, and so you're not as focused on maybe some of the things that a winery would be. And so I've come to realize that I, too, do love and enjoy wine, especially a really good table red where I can just drink half a liter of it, no problem, great. But it is different, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay that there's different, drinks for different people.
Right.
And beer is one of them. And, on a hot summer's day, I don't think I'm going to go have a glass of red, But at the same time, if I'm eating a big, Italian meal, I'm probably having a glass of red. Yeah. And that's okay.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a good point, actually.
But there is, maybe you've just been to the wrong wineries, but I think there's a good community there. It's just maybe harder to crack or to...
I think it's less I'm not saying youth friendly, but it's just different. How I see a winery from when the ones that I've gone to, which is not many, to be honest with you. It's mostly more middle-aged people, and they're couples. It's not really you go with the boys. I mean, you could, but it's way more. It's different. I'm not saying to get wasted at a winery. That's not what I've done that, but it's not what I'm saying. That's what I would do. But I do feel like maybe wineries will have to adapt or to pivot to that moment because older, the younger generation, they're gonna get older and they're gonna have to figure out a way. How can we attract, the younger generation?
All business, you're 100% right. Yeah. Well said. And 100% of businesses in alcohol are going to have to continue to pivot because, the drinker that's the next generation drinker who's maybe 15 to 30. So not 50, I don't mean 15-year-olds should be drinking, but when they come up, they are a different generation and they have different expectations and wants and desires than what we had growing up. What you had is different from what I had growing up, right? Yeah. You kind of grew up at the beginnings of craft beer. I grew up at a time when there's no craft beer. It was just Molson Labatt, and maybe there was Moosehead, so different times. So for instance, wine sales, there's a new thing called a piquette. Which is, like a wine spritz, basically, where it's wine diluted with soda water and maybe some other flavorings, and it's like sort of a wine's answer to a ready to drink, like a nude or neutral soda, right?
Spritz kind of thing.
Yeah. So there'll be continue to be evolutions in the world, and I think that won't stop because tastes change.
Well, I think the cool thing about, I'm not saying that because you guys can things, and you guys don't only can. I know you guys do bottles and things like that. Yeah. I think what's really coming into the scene right now is seltzers, right? You see all the vodka brands, they're all doing seltzer. There's nude, and then there's neutral, and then there's this and that, and it's
why are they so popular?
So it's sweet, probably. I would say I'd rather drink a seltzer than a shot of vodka, personally. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's easier to drink. It's more not you friendly, but a nice cold seltzer. It's almost like a cold beer. I feel breweries, you guys are good for now. I think you guys are at a good spot. Wineries is different because it's you can make wine, red wine, white wine. Yeah. You can make what's it called? What's the sweet one? Red wine sweet, but I mean white wine sweet. But what's
you mean ice wine?
Not ice wine. You can make what's the pink
port?
Wine? No, the pink
rosé.
Right? But that's it. But that's kind of it. What else are they gonna do? You're gonna see Boeing Owl and Kelowna making a seltzer. I don't know about that. Who knows? They might have to.
Well, when you have a wine license, you also, by default, have a cider license. Right, so they can do cider, but cider sales have been declining for a long time.
I got into that.
Yeah. Cider, so you're right. Is they can also, with their businesses, they'll get a distilling license, and they can also get a brewing license. So it is possible for people with really strong brands. Yeah. And I think you're going to see that a lot of coming forward is a lot of crossover between maybe there's a business that's strong in beer and maybe there's a business that's strong in wine or spirits coming together and leveraging that. And there's a lot of synergies in this. And I think moving forward with some of the challenges in the world and there's some of the synergies, it's going to happen.
I agree. So going back to the business, what was opening day like for you? Stressful? Was it busy? Was it what was that like in your eyes for you and Ian?
just, kind of like you didn't want to just mess up. You just like, here's our opening day. Like, is everything going to work? We're probably both pretty. I mean, Ian, my partner for sure, is more detail oriented than I am. But you're just worried about. There's so many things that you worry about. Your POS, your beer, is it cold? The glasses, is the glass washer working? Are people going to come? How are we going to advertise it? How what's the price we're going to pay? People haven't been trained on this. Like there's so many things you sort of worry about. But we did have a moment where we just sort of like let go and we're like, this is it. It's happening, and it was. Yeah. Again, anyone who's gone through something that's a lot of work and a lot of effort, that moment, it's hard to enjoy it. But it's a moment, and we had it. And I remember there's a picture of Ian and I the day we decided to open. Someone took a photo of us, and it was just like we had this look of youthful happiness. We didn't, because everything is just like you're just at the start of that journey. Whereas when you get to where we are now, which is 9 years, there's many, many wonderful things, but it's also there's a lot of challenges and bumps in the road, and navigating those becomes not wearing, but like it sort of. It
takes a toll.
It adds up.
Yeah.
It's tough running a business, and it's the most rewarding thing. But like anything, it's also work.
What do you think? Like, do you think for you guys or for the brewery, has COVID been a big impact for you guys, or has it helped you guys? Like, what was COVID like for you guys?
This made everything extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what way?
Great question. Well, when it first happened, like. No one knew what the heck was going to happen. So we laid off a bunch of people. We closed the room. I mean, beer, we're a heavy draft company. We sell a lot of draft beer around town. And so that all basically just stopped overnight. We had to take all these kegs back. And then so we were worried, like, what's going to happen with our business? And then this, like immediately after everything got shut down, this amazing thing happened is we opened our tasting room and we started selling product to go, and we asked people for help and support, and people came and supported us, and they supported us amazingly. And so that next like 2.5 years to the beginning of 2022 was either like amazing, holy cow, we're going straight down, we're going back down to lockdowns, we're opening up again, and like it was just sort of roller coaster of good and bad. And I think we're still coming out of it. But I don't know what that means fully for our business. And, I don't know if it's I can't see the forest through the trees, or if it's I'm blind to it, or if it's not fully played out yet. But I think the whole inflation thing, which to me is a byproduct of everything that happened, is going to linger for some time. So to me, until we're done with inflation and things kind of return to normal, we're kind of still in, not COVID, but, the effects of COVID.
Right.
Because inflation is really, really, really challenging. Really, really challenging.
Yeah, like you hear it all the time, like inflation this, inflation that, like businesses closing down, like it's always, it's crazy. Right? Yeah. Especially for running a business. Like people that are running a business are the ones that are getting hit almost the hardest, right, out of everybody.
And and because beer is an everyday person's drink, there's limits to what you can sell it for. You can sell a bottle of whiskey for a lot of money, as you probably know, and a bottle of wine can also go for a lot of money. But beer, how much would you pay for a can of beer? Like at most, $5, $4, $5, maybe $6. So like there's this narrow little band you can play in, and it's important to sort of stay true to who got you to that point by not, pricing them out of your product.
But that's also something that you guys did really well, is you guys create a community.
Right.
Which is like probably one of the biggest things for any business, really, is to create like a community and like people that are being loyal and want to support local for you guys, right? So, I think you guys were not lucky because you guys put in the work. There's luck to everything, but like once you start your business, it's like it's all you guys at the end of the day.
Right. Well, thank you, and that continues. I think as a business, we got away from it. So there's two different groups I want to tell you, but one is the East Van Brewery District Cooperative.
Okay.
I'll say that 5 times fast. So it's all the breweries, basically, from Clark Drive to all the breweries of East Vancouver, it's called. There's 15 breweries and there's 2 distilleries. And we sort of get together every 6 or 8 weeks. Storm, for instance, just put out a collaboration brew that we did, supporting the community and celebrating the community. So that happened. And this was the first year, it just finished yesterday, Vancouver Brewers Fest.
Okay.
So COVID kind of killed the beer festival for a couple of years, though, and rightfully so. You know, we couldn't gather and get together. And that's kind of a good thing for breweries, because there were so many festivals before COVID happened that you literally, like a brewery our size, which we're still quite small, we had to have a full-time event person to run the events that we did in-house and out-of-house. And it was too much work for that person. They needed support and help. So what the breweries got together, all the breweries of Vancouver, so there's 25 breweries that took part in Vancouver Brewers Fest this year, got together and decided, hey, let's have an event that we run that is put on by us, for us, that celebrates craft beer. And so we just had this like 9-10 day celebration in Vancouver where all the breweries held different events at their breweries, brought people in, did tours, played games, put on specials, did beer pairings and beer talks, did food truck pairings. And so it was a really great 10 days. And I think, you know, we need to remind people that Vancouver is the home of the most craft breweries in Western Canada as a city. We have some of the original breweries in Canada here. We have Storm Brewing, Yaletown Brew Pub, Steamworks Brew Pub. These breweries have been around a long time, since the 90s. And we need to celebrate that we have this amazing culture of makers and beer in Vancouver. And that's what it did this year. And it reminded people, because there's so many great communities, like you said, Shipyards District, Brewers Row, Victoria, even in Kelowna now, there's tons of breweries. But, you know, Vancouver, we're OGs here. And it's nice to celebrate that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
I hope so.
I never thought about it like that. But I mean, it just brings people together anyways.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's the whole point, right? Like, you know.
Really what it is. I mean, beer brings people together like nothing else. It's a social lubricant, and you know, it's a good thing.
What have been, sorry to go back to this, but like, you know, when you were starting to make the brewery, like when everything was getting started, when you got the warehouse, you started to put all these equipment, things like that, like, were there some like difficult times in between from start to finish to like when you guys did the opening time? Like, was there
personally or professionally or
both?
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Yeah.
If I can ask, like, I'm just that must have taken a toll on both of you guys. Like, I'm sure there's been some times where you're being stressed for some kind of reason, or maybe there's something like. How did that take a toll on your personal life or mental health? If you don't mind me asking.
No, and I'm happy to share, because I'm an open book when it comes to stuff like this. And you know, like personally, it was really difficult on my life partner and I, and our man. In 2014, my kids would have been 8 and 7. Yeah, 8 and 7, and really difficult on being a parent to them and being around. Financially, like I know there were conversations my wife had. She's like, "Why are you doing this? This is killing our relationship and killing our marriage, and killing the dreams we had of owning a home together." And you know, we had to sell a property in order to finance the business. So it kind of like she gave up on this dream to have this amazing property right next to her parents, and we sold it and to fund the brewery. And you know, it's easy to say now, well, look what Strange Fellows became. But in the moment when all I'm doing is like talking about this thing I want to start and nothing's happening, that's, you know, her anxiety about the whole thing came out, which is totally fair. Like, it was really a selfish endeavor for myself, and you know, it put a lot of strain on others around me, my family, my friends, and my immediate family, my wife and my kids. So that was really, really challenging. And you know, I'm glad we made it through that together. And then, you know, from a business standpoint, is you take, you know, like when you raise money, like we raised money, my business partner and I put money in, and then we had a bunch of investors that gave us money. And you're taking money, and mostly it's friends and family. These are people you know, you hang out with, and you're taking their money, and they're entrusting you with this money. So that's pressure. And, you know, luckily for myself and Ian, we were able to achieve for them, and it's done well, and everyone's good, and we're all good. But like, that's stressful, you know, stressful, because if you have a conscience, You're worried about that, you know, because if it goes belly up like it did at other businesses, like you lose all your money, you then have to try and make money to pay back the money you owe, and then any investor's money is also gone. Yeah. That's stress.
And friendships and
friendships,
family,
yeah.
Which is like
money gets in the way of things. Yeah, it's true. So, yeah, touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's like, I mean, like starting any business is never easy, right? So it's like you always see these kids on like social media that are like doing all these things online, which is great. I mean, they figured out what works for them, right? But it's like when you hear a story like that, with all the hard work that goes in, the sacrifice. Not saying that these kids didn't sacrifice anything, but it's just like takes a toll on people, right? And it's like, that's again going back to this, is like personally, like I really enjoy meeting people like yourself and hearing stories like that, because it just makes you realize like, wow, like there's not just great people out there, but it's like there's people that have big dreams, and like anything is achievable if you really put your mind into it, right?
There's no rocket science to doing it. It's just, you know, being smart about the decisions you make, and working within your own sort of risk tolerance bands, right? You know, and you can't go beyond it. It's easy to.
Yeah. What are, if you don't mind me asking, so this is so off topic, but like, what are like roughly, because I know in the food industry, like margins when it comes to like a dish, I think the food costs like 3 or 4 times what it's supposed to be like roughly, I think. Like what are the margins like on average on a can of beer, for example?
Okay, I can give you a really quick answer.
Yeah.
The margins in beer are excellent. The government just takes a lot of it. Right? So you have different taxes along the way, but ultimately those taxes make that beer the price that it is. So, because beer in itself, it's like, you know, there's not a ton of ingredients into it. The packaging is kind of expensive. You know, the cans maybe 25 cents. The labels 5 to 7 cents. The carton you put it in, the delivery, the salesperson, like it's not bad as a business. You know, if it was like Coca-Cola, like that's just sugar water. There's no real like government intervention there. But we have liquor tax, you have excise tax, you have production taxes, and those add up.
Yeah,
and they take it. But generally speaking, you know, you either try and make a higher margin product like craft beer does, or you go for a volume play, which is like you have lower margins and you sell a lot more beer. And, you know, that's Molson and Labatt have done really well at that, and that's just not a game I want to play.
Yeah.
No craft brewery does.
Yeah.
You got to do so much more work to make the same money. Like,
yeah.
Read that.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, I think it's important to price your product realistically, and, you know, with the exception of a couple new employees, all of our employees make a living wage. You know, our brewery has a conscience, and it's a living, breathing thing. Whereas big corporations, I feel like, relentlessly pursue profitability and margins, and at the expense of maybe doing what's right for the world. Like, for instance, most of our core beer, or core beers that we make year round, we went from having on 4-packs that brought the 4-pack rings that these beers came in.
Yeah.
But we moved away from that and put them into cardboard boxes. Cardboard boxes are better for the world. It's less plastic, but it costs us more per 4-pack to do that, because that plastic ring was like 15 cents. I don't know, something like that. And the cardboard box is like 30 cents. So it actually doubles our cost of the packaging for that product, but it's the right thing to do. You know, do we need more plastic in this world? No. So, you know, sometimes a small business would make that choice where a big business would be like,
right,
whatever. Well, forget that. We'll just do what's right for the bottom line.
When you started your business, like when it was open and things like that, like did you don't have to name drop if there is, but like did you guys ever get like threats from like other breweries at all? Or, like,
no, not
or,
at
like,
all.
The big ones at all? Like,
no.
Yeah.
No, in fact, and quite the opposite. When you're opening, other breweries come by and introduce themselves, craft breweries that is, and offer help. David from Powell. We had Moody Ale's original guys, Adam and Dan. Nigel from Brassneck. I'm just dropping a ton of names here. But they all came by and offered help and support. What do we need? Even to this day, you know, like if we need some yeast we will ask a few other breweries for it. Other breweries say, hey, we need some growlers. We're out of growler lids. We need cardboard boxes to borrow. Does anyone have a contact for order? Like, it's just share information in terms of like where we get things and how we buy things and what works and what software works for the brewery and stuff like that. And we still look at it as we're working together, even though maybe more so now than ever we are competing against each other. It still doesn't feel like it.
Right. That's good. That's nice, honestly. Like, I mean, right? I think.
Well, yeah, but can it go on forever?
Yeah.
You know, like when someone like yourself is questioning how many breweries can there be, like, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah.
How it plays out.
Next couple of years, I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
I think there's going to be change, and I think there has to be
change in what way?
Well, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. So those early years of craft beer, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you know, it was not difficult to open and to run a successful brewery. But now with the reality of the business world and beer and all the things we've talked about, it's harder. So that tide's going out a little bit. So those people that are at the margins are being exposed. And I don't mean that in an accusatory way at all, but like, you know, if you're not running a good business, it's tough times right now.
Right.
In all business, but certainly in beer. So like those people who maybe have taken on too much debt, maybe their margins were already too thin, maybe they are carrying a few too many employees, that's going to come back and get them. So it's really,
right.
It's tough right now.
And like, I don't know, I'm just kind of, I think we're kind of conscious on time here, but like, do you guys have any like goals, anything? Like, we haven't
even talked about this stuff here.
They know about this, but we can talk about this in a sec. Yeah, for sure. But before I talk about this, like, what are like the plans for this year and like maybe future plans for Strange Fellows? Like, do you guys have any big plans and goals? Or?
Okay, so I'll try to answer in a very succinct manner.
No worries.
We were one of the first breweries in British Columbia to come out with a non-alcoholic beer. So that is a beer that's less than 0.5%. There's a difference between non-alcoholic and de-alcoholized. Okay. De-alcoholized is what the big boys do. They make the beer and then they run it through this like $1 million machine and it just takes all the alcohol out of it. Whereas this beer is brewed in a manner where there's virtually, I think the actual number is 0.2%. So we just put it as 0.5 just to be sure. But so the whole non-alcoholic beer thing is something that we're really focused on. We came out with a variety box, which is logistically really challenging because there's 4 different beers in a variety box, and you have to make those 4 different beers, warehouse them, and then put them all together. So that's a bit of a challenge, but it's good for people who maybe don't know our brand and want to try a variety of beers. We put our Talisman in short cans. We have more wine coming out. We have a wine spritz coming out. And really, you know, we're looking into other businesses, other beverage categories outside of alcohol and in alcohol to grow and to partner with people and to see if we can sort of dilute ourselves and our brand out of alcohol into other areas. So maybe we take a bit of the perceived, like we're all in on alcohol right now. And that's been great for us. And it still could be great for us for many years, but I think it's prudent to sort of take the brand we've created, which we believe is good and decent and known, and see if we can't parlay it into some other categories, like maybe coffee, maybe tea, maybe sodas, maybe cannabis. Yeah. You know, maybe there's some other areas we can look at with it. So that's really the year ahead, and really just trying to make sure we right the ship, pay off some debt, and you know, be stronger going forward. Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we end this, like, is there like, I'm sure a lot of people know, but like, how can people find you guys on Instagram, social media?
If they've made it this far listening to me blather on about absolutely nothing and they want to know more, definitely if you just Google Strange Fellows Brewing, we're in East Vancouver on Clark Drive. You can come by the brewery, the tasting room, have a beer, get some beer to go. We're in most of the government liquor stores and private liquor stores through town. And then our social media channels we're pretty active. We're getting going on TikTok, which is kind of fun, but definitely heavy on Instagram. Or they can reach out to me or my business partner, and whatever, info@strangefellowsbrewing.com if they want to send an email, tell me how annoying I was, all that stuff.
No,
you know,
I think it was
we're
great.
out there.
Yeah, no, honestly, and thank you so much again for coming on. And I'm sure like the viewers or the listeners, you guys, I'm sure you guys learned a few things. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you guys next time on Table 604.